Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your host, Cesar Espino, You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Blair Hayse. Hey, Blair, how are you?
Hi, I'm great.
I am awesome. Great. Thank you for being here. Before we dive in, let me give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background. So Blair is a massive profit coach, two-time best-selling author and international speaker. She owns Blair Hayse International, where she helps her clients scale to 7 figures and beyond. She also owns Blair Hayse Publishing and offers a free online magazine to all who want to learn about scaling their online business. Blair brought her 19 years experience in the hospitality field, where she worked with billion-dollar corporations, turned their properties to an online space where she now does the same for online entrepreneurs. In her spare time, Blair likes to travel, spend time with her family, and shop, mainly on shoes and purses. That's awesome. Hey, you got to do it, right? That's awesome. I love it. So, Blair, before we dive into that, though, I want to know more about your background. So let's take it way back to, what were you born, and just kind of talk about your childhood history.
Absolutely. So I was born in Mississippi and grew up in a really great family. One thing I looking back, of course, when I think hindsight's always 20/20, when you get to be adults, then you're like, You see things about your childhood you didn't see when you were younger. But I just had really great parents that instilled in me the entrepreneur spirit from a very young age. So my dad especially always was pushing me just to do things, to create things, to create space, to make things and money. And looking back just at a very early age, I learned a lot about entrepreneurship just without realizing that being a kid. But I think that I had a really great childhood. I can't complain. My parents were really involved. And so, I played instruments. I played the violin and piano. And ended up teaching that for many years. But I just, they were very good work ethic people, I guess, like looking back, they had a lot of hard work. And so I think they instilled that into both me and my brother. Looking at us now, we're both just very hard workers and just very ethical in the way we do things. So I think that definitely stemmed from my
that's awesome. And sometimes, I like to ask people, if you look back and you feel like, you had a good childhood, like you did, are there any lessons that maybe perhaps you didn't see then that you see now? And obviously you talked about the entrepreneurship, but are there any other lessons that you said, that came from that, or something that might have, changed something in your life now based on your past? Any major lessons?
I would definitely say money, the concept around money. My parents both were very, what I guess you would call delayed gratification. So they would wait and save up their money. And then when they could pay cash for it, then they paid cash. And so I grew up in a family that people thought we were very affluent and thought that we had money. But it was just the fact that my parents managed money really well. My dad was the full-time breadwinner. My mom stayed at home with us. So, and he worked his way up in the company, but, just looking back, they just managed their money really well, and they paid cash for everything. Like, I don't remember them having a house payment. They didn't have car payments. So it did appear that we were well off, when really it just wasn't that way. It was just, we weren't tied down with debt. Right. And so I think that, looking back, even, in my life now, just, the way I manage my money, and it took me a while because I went on a spree after I left home of just buying things.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you grow older, you look back and you're like, okay, maybe my parents weren't crazy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just come over the past, you know, for the past several years that, you know, I've just really taken their advice a lot more on like, you know, it is better. I can even see in my own life and in my children's life of just having that delayed gratification and deciding, okay, if this is what I want, then I'm going to save up. And when I can pay cash for it, then, you know, not having all those payments, not being tied down is really major. So, you know, I think that too, just the whole concept around money was very much came from them.
And actually, I love that because a lot of times we tend to have a bad relationship with money, right? And so, you know, with that comes a lot of different things. Then we have it and we tend to overspend all of it. And now we don't have anything because there's no good relationship on that. And so there's definitely lessons to be learned with that, with the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to take this and save it for something that I need down the line versus, you know, overspending what I don't have, right? And so that's actually definitely a great lesson. And I know that for a good amount of people, that is one of the things that is really holding them back from moving forward, you know, and so on and so forth, right?
Well, and I think too, just the fact that we whenever we increase our money, so let's just say, you know, we get a promotion at work or we get a really great job making more money, we increase our style of living instead of putting back some of that money in case there was, you know, like a worldwide pandemic that we need a lot, you know, some savings. And I just think that there's, you know, that, you know, my dad always taught me to have like a 6-month cushion. And, you know, looking back, I'm like, God, he was so smart. Like, I didn't see it when I was younger because I like to spend money, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, he was so smart because you don't know when something's going to happen. You don't know when your job's going to cave or when, you know, something major is going to happen, you know, with a sickness or something. Like, you don't know when you're going to need to tap into that savings, and to have that can be pretty life-changing if you're not strapped, you know, and not living above your means.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And in terms of you worked in corporate for, you know, pretty much 19 years, right? Yeah. So tell me more about that story, you know, or at least that you know, lessons learned, maybe things you had to overcome being in corporate for 19 years or working for somebody else for 19 years.
So actually I loved my corporate job. I will give you that.
Yeah, that's good.
It was very rewarding, and it was very, the thing I loved about the hotel industry is you just never knew what your day was going to bring. So it was a real roller coaster ride. But I think the flip side of that is just getting to the point where I realized that corporate was holding me back because you can only move so far up the corporate ladder. And even moving up the corporate ladder just come with a lot of, I guess, price tags I didn't want, just being, you know, a lot of hours. I hardly ever saw my 2 children. I was a single mom too. So just having that kind of hours. And then, you know, I traveled a lot with my particular corporate position. So I think that the freedom aspect of it, I think, is what limited me. But as far as the adrenaline and the corporate, I worked for some great people. Of course, I know we all have some that we work for that we wish we hadn't. Right. But there were very few and far between. I can say that I worked for some amazing corporate teams, and the things I learned from my bosses and the things I took away, I'm still friends with almost all of them and keep in touch with them. They just, as with everything, there's things you can learn. And so I learned a lot from them, especially in the corporate industry, and how to move up the ladder. So I just think that I was blessed. I was very blessed because there's some people you hear out there that have nightmare corporate stories. And mine wasn't so much. I mean, it wasn't a personal level just because it was very lonely at the top and it was a lot of responsibility and hours. But as far as who I worked for, I just can't complain. I had some really great bosses and leaders. Yeah.
So besides seeing that you can only go so far in the corporate ladder, were there any other indications or things that kind of came to mind and said, you know what, I need to, you know, venture into an entrepreneur?
I think that, well, in the hotel industry, it's a very fluid industry. So they flip properties very regularly, which was my job. And when they flip properties, new owners take over and they want their own teams to come in. So they don't want the old teams to run it anymore. And so being at the top of the ladder, I was the first that got cut. They might keep the lower line level, but they definitely wouldn't keep the upper level. And so, so it was just one of those things where you just never knew if your job was stable, because they flipped so much. The longest you would stay with the hotels, maybe 3 years. So it was pretty roller coaster ride of just not knowing from one day to the next if you're going to have a job. And though it wasn't hard to find another position, it's just the stress of having to get another position. So I think it was just that sort of, that too kind of played a role in it of just, I was getting older and I wanted a little bit more stability. And there comes with it a point that you're just like, I'm not as young as I used to be. I can't ride this roller coaster and not know from one day to the next my job situation. And so I think that, that played a part in it too. When I decided to venture into the online space, I kind of just dabbled in it. Like I put my foot in and just didn't really want to dive in. And so, I did that for a couple of years, kind of off and on between jobs and between contracts with hotels. But I think, when I decided to fully jump in, it just came to the point of like, either I'm going to make this work or I'm going to go back to the corporate office. And like, I couldn't keep balancing both, just with the hours I was putting in. So I think, I just had to make a decision. Not look back.
not look back. No, I can relate to what you mentioned about corporate, right? I mean, I worked in corporate America too, and although it seems nice on the top, and you might have, like you said, you might have a good pay, you might travel, because a lot of people look forward to that. Sometimes it can get very daunting and tiring to travel a lot, because I know that like living out of a suitcase is not always the dream thing you want. I know people want it, because I remember me looking back before when I was younger. I'm like, I want to be that. I want to travel. I want to do all this, and I got to do it. I'm like, man, I want to be back home. So so I can relate to that. Where if you're at the bottom, you're like, you're not making a lot of money. If you're on the top, you're like, okay, am I going to have a job, or is it going to be very stressful? You're going to, there's different things. And for me, I know is like, one of the things that I want to do is kind of take back that control and also be able to have, my schedule. And don't get me wrong, and better than this too, is like being an entrepreneur is not also an easy thing. It's not for everybody. There's a lot more, probably more hours that you will probably put on your own job, right? I find myself working to like 12 or 1 o'clock sometimes, although I enjoy it though, which is the difference, right? And I think that's a big part of that, is you have to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, maybe the entrepreneurship is not for you. So anyways, I can definitely relate to that. When you dabble into that and you finally say, what, I'm going to do it, and obviously you had already started your online business, what were some struggles that maybe came to mind, or were there, not only that, were there any thoughts that they're like, you were saying like, Blair, what did you do? Like, go back to work, or like, the little voice telling you like, why would you do this? Why would you leave your job?
Yeah, I think, so for me, when I went into entrepreneurship, I just remember, it being, of course, we all look at it with the eyes of like, well, and I'm sure we look at this in corporate America rising to the top too. You think it's always greener on the other side, sort of thing. And so I didn't go into it blindly, I wouldn't say, but I did definitely not be prepared for, I think, the hardships that would come with it. So I just remember several times thinking, first of all, I tried to cookie cutter myself. So I tried to become like everybody else, instead of just doing what I do and being me. And so I think that brought a lot more struggles into my life than if I had just went out there and been brave enough to be me. But I can also say that, the first, when I made the decision, I went all in. It was a real financial roller coaster for me, because I am the breadwinner. And so it was just one of those things of like giving up that security of having that paycheck. Even if we loathe it, it's still security. It's still there. And so to just jump all in, I just remember really struggling to make money, struggling to make things work, trying all kinds of different things that, to make it work. And so it kind of got to the point of, I remember my car, they came and repossessed my car. And I remember thinking to myself, this is it. I've got to go back. Like, I've just got to go back. I made the most stupid decision ever. I've got to go back. And during my time, like, it's almost like I feel like I was being tested because when I decided to go all in, I had about 3 hotels reach out to me. And of course, I'm not on the market, was not looking for a job, but reach out to me and say, hey, we have this job. We want you to come work for us. Like, offered me great packages. And I just remember thinking, okay, this is a test. Like, I've got to stick this out. And, but yeah, I just remember that day when my car got repossessed, just crying and thinking, okay, this is it. Like, I've got to go back. Well, I just need a stupid decision. And I called up one of my friends, and I just remember her saying, like, Blair, you need to just dry your eyes and you need to get with it. Like, get off your ass and get with it. And I just remember thinking, that was harsh, like, but I dried my eyes, and I remember I went live that day and I sold out a brand new program that I just thought up on the top of my head. And that was the turning point. Like, from then on, within a month, I paid cash for a vehicle. I didn't have to worry about anyone coming and repossessing my vehicle. And I think it was just one of those things of like, I just needed that kick to be like, okay, you're either going to do this or you're not. And I think that that's where, like, when it came to the rubber meeting the road, I threw out all the cookie cutterness and all the trying to be like the other coaches, and just say, okay, Blair, do what you do best, get out there and just do it. And I think that was the kind of the decision making of like the turning point of that entrepreneurship.
No, wow, I love that. And so, were you a single mom and only the only bread provider at that time?
I was, and it's funny because I was dating my husband now, but we weren't together. And it's funny because I met him at my last hotel job, and so all the time I say, and I would never date anyone in my hotel pool because I was the boss, right? Yeah. And so he tried.
Good thing you were leaving, right? You were already
right. He was like trying to flirt with me, and I'm like trying to shut him down. And I just remember, like, finally one day I told him, like, straight up, like, I don't date people under me. Like, I just worked hard to get here. I'm not going to do it. And so about a week later, he came and turned in his 2-week notice. And he had been with the company for 11 years. And I was like, you cannot leave me. Like, no. Yeah. And he was like, well, if it's the only way I can get a date out of you, I'll just find another job. Wow. And so it's like, well, if he's willing to give up 11-year career, I guess I'll date him. So, so he quit, and we started dating. And then I exited within, I guess it was probably within 3 to 4 months. So it's one of those things, I think, like, I tell him all the time, I went to the hotel industry, I think, just to find him because it was a long career. But I think, just one of those things of facing entrepreneurship has been easier since him and I have been together, just because he does support my dreams and he does support me. So when things got hard, he was one of the first ones that was like, you've got this, like, you're brilliant, like, you can do this. And so I think having a cheerleader, whether it be a friend or a parent or a spouse, someone that's going to stand behind you when it does get tough in the entrepreneur world, to kind of just give you that kick of like, yes, you've got this, keep doing it. It helps tremendously, because it can be lonely being an entrepreneur, which, it's lonely in the corporate world too, but it's even more lonely when you're in like you're by yourself and it's an entrepreneur. Right.
At least you're in the corporate, you're like you mentioned, is like you're kind of have that secure, check, even if it's lonely, you're gonna get it. And then here you get lonely and you're not doing anything or not putting out any content or whatever it is that you're doing, you're not gonna get paid. So you gotta definitely shape up and do that. And I love what your friend said, just kind of wipe up your tears and kind of get to it, right? And so that lets me to another question that I was just thinking, like, how critical it is, for anything really in life, for people to really just start taking action, like whatever it is, right? Because I think sometimes we get, too busy and worry about all of the details, or we get overwhelmed with a lot of information. And at the end of the day, we don't even take the action, right? There's so much stuff that you don't even know where to start or where to go. So how critical is it to take action?
Well, one of my favorite sayings, and I think any of my clients would say, I tell them this every single week, is to get out of their head. We overcomplicate things as humans. So we overanalyze, we think things over too much. If you just do it, I always say imperfect action is better than no action.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just go and do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have beautiful content put out there. People want results. They're not going to go to bed at night and think, oh, Blair's website is so beautiful, I'm going to buy something from her. No, they go to bed thinking, wow, Blair just made a client hit, X amount of money. I need that. Like, they want the results. And so, I think that there's a lot of hang up on whether things look beautiful, whether things are perfect before it's put out there. And to be honest, like, it just needs to be put out there. There's so much more time later, once the money and the cash flow is coming in, to make it as beautiful as you want it, if that's something you desire. But at the same time, like, just weighing that, like, I had someone the other day, like, ask me, she was like, can I have your website? And I was like, I don't even have a website. She's like, you built your business with no website? And I'm like, yeah, like, you don't have to have a website. It's nice. And I have a domain and I want to get it built eventually, but it's not where my revenue is. So, so it's just think, go where the money is, go where the cash flow is. Don't worry about how beautiful it is or how perfect it is. There's time to perfect it. There's time to make it beautiful later. Like, just get the cash flow coming in.
I love that. The imperfection is better. So you said it's better to take imperfection action than perfect action, right?
Imperfect action is better than no action.
Oh, then no action.
Because I think, like, when we get hung up on perfection, we end up just stalling ourselves. Like, we deadlock ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like every human. It's just a human trait. Because we get all in our head and then we're like stalled. It's like we lock ourselves up from making money. And then it just keeps it's like almost like spiraling out of control eventually.
Right.
So yeah.
I love that. And let's talk about your coaching program or the thing that you do, right? Massive Profit Coach. What kind of coaching do you do, and what are some of the clients that come to you for help?
So a little bit about what we do is we take clients that really want to scale their business. They really want to get to the next level. And we help them find their unique voice. We help them find a way to get out there and to build their business without all the frills, just to get the cash flow, to get to the next level. And I think, like, that came a lot from me working as a turnaround consultant in the hotel industry for so long. I have a real knack for being able to look at things and seeing, like, okay, this missing most of the time it's just something that needs to be shifted, just very small, maybe pricing structure or especially content and the way we're delivering things and the copy we're putting out, just some tweaks made to bring people to the next level. With probably different people. I don't limit it just to the online space. And so I have some that I've worked with brick and mortar businesses. And then I have some that's been online spaces. It really determines just, the person, and if they're, at that point of just feeling like, okay, I want to get to this next level, but I'm not sure, I'm stalling, I don't know how to get there. That's what we really do, is take them under our wings and help them.
Awesome. And then your books. Tell me about your books and best-selling author. What inspired you to write the books, and what are some of the books about?
I think what inspired me, well, I've always loved writing. And that's something else that came from my childhood. My dad really encouraged me to write. And so, I've attended writing college. I've gotten certifications, and I just love to write. And I don't know why it never occurred to me before to help other women share their story, but I just want to give them a voice and a platform to talk about their struggles, to talk about the things they have overcome that's allowed them to become the person they are today. And so that's where I came up with the She Is Magic series, just because I wanted everybody to realize they have magic inside of them. They have that magic. And if they've overcome anything, or there's ever been a point in their life that they've been wanting to throw in a towel, they can go back to that point and realize that, hey, I dug deep, I went in and I overcome something, and that's massive. And then to share that just comes with a whole, I think just it heals you, first of all, from whatever it was. And then second of all, it just really helps them to get their voice out there and inspire other people that might be going through a similar situation, that there's hope, there's inspiration, right?
Yeah, got it. No, that's awesome. I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I think a lot of people want to be able to look for or either find sometimes a similar story that people can relate to, right? And say, okay, well, what are some of the lessons? What are some of the things that I can take from that can help me in my own journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's definitely very critical. Now, with that though, definitely putting out that series just so that people can see and people can relate to that. What do you think are other things that people can do to overcome some of their challenges on a day-to-day basis?
I went through some very major stuff many years ago when I actually lost my first husband to the prison system for life. And I just remember looking for support and not finding the support I needed. There wasn't a lot of support out there for spouses. And so that's kind of the reason I dove myself into my career so strongly, was because it was my out. And as we all know, like, that's not a very good way to heal.
Yeah.
So it ended up in a whole host of some really serious health issues. But, I think, looking back, I just remember a neighbor that I had when I was going through it, and I remember crying, and him and his wife were so sweet. And he told me one day, he says, "Blair, just take it one day at a time." And I says, "I can't, like, a day seems too much." And he was like, "Well, then take it 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 breath at a time, like, take it at the speed you can." And I just remember that saved me for several years of just remembering, like, I have to break this down to where I can manage it. And if that means, like, if they're going through something major, literally taking it down to what you can. And then I think that, if you're willing to talk about your experience, that those people will be brought into your life. You don't even have to go out there looking for them. So it's been crazy how it's tended to be like I've attracted people that have also been affected by the justice system without me going and looking for them. It's like they are just attracted to me. And so having that, I think, like, if you're willing to talk about it, just being willing to share your story when it feels good for you. But realizing that everyone's in their own space. Like, if it takes you years to heal, there's nothing wrong with you, right? If it takes you weeks to heal, there's nothing wrong with you. We all heal in our own time and in our own space. And so taking care of you is the most important thing I could tell anyone. Because that's really what you have to do whenever you're going through challenges.
Yeah, definitely two things that I picked up on that I want you to elaborate more. Number one is, you're attracting, without even thinking about it, you're attracting that. So what is your belief on energy, right? Because I believe that energy, just like money is energy, a lot of things that we do is energy, it flows. And so number one, what is your belief on energy? And with that comes how you focus, or the things that you're thinking about would expand, right? And so if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm a firm believer in energy. And so I feel like, we are what we attract, and what frequency we drive on really impacts us in our life completely. And that too has been something that, some people know, because it's my clients know. I tap a lot. I'm a huge firm believer in EFT, and a huge believer in frequencies. So there's certain, essential oils I use when I'm doing a law of attraction that increases the frequencies. But I just think, like, you are what you attract what you are. So, like, if you are in a really low spot, getting in there and visualizing yourself at a spot of where you want to be, or meditating, or really using a vision board, whatever it is that you see increases your energy level, do more of that. And for everyone, that's very different. So I don't think there's a cookie cutter way to manifest millions, if that was to be something.
Everybody will be doing it.
I think it's very unique. It's very catered to each person. You have to find what works for you and what elevates your frequency and your energy. But just to realize that is so huge, that you are, and you attract everything that you're thinking of, that you're doing, that you're putting your energy towards, because you're operating at that frequency. So, if people would realize that, and I talked about this a few weeks ago in a training that I did, if you're at a bad point, flipping that energy switch. So, something I've used for years is, if I'm at a point that I'm upset, or I'm hurt by something. Flipping that into an energy of, okay, what can I do to make that not happen? And so, like, for example, I was dealing with some people that were copying my work.
Mm.
And so I was upset by it, of course, right? Because it's my hard work. But I just remember, I can either sit there and complain about it and wallow in it and probably attract more of it, or I can flip that switch and say, okay, I'm a little perturbed. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to really educate people on how they can protect themselves. So I dug deep. I talked to lawyers. I talked to what is covered. What can people do? What can entrepreneurs do to keep this from happening? And I'm actually creating a course right now that will probably come out the end of this month. That's one of the things we teach is integrity in business and ethics and how to protect yourself from being copied, and what you can do to protect your intellectual property. So, how do you use that energy? So, right, energy is so movable. So when it's in a bad spot, how to move that into a good spot, right? It's really all about that.
Wow. No, that's awesome. And I really love that. And I think that's definitely for entrepreneurs, that's definitely going to be a good program that you can have, because there is that missing piece in many different aspects, right? Into that. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, what is your belief when it comes down to surrounding yourself with a particular group of people? How critical is that for even in your personal life, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know who it was that said that you are who you surround yourself with. Like you take your top 5 people you spend your most time with, and that's who you'll be like. But it's something that I actually have believed in for quite some time. So I've always looked to people that were at the next level, people that were where I wanted to be, and really followed them, got into their energy. There's certain gurus out there that I'll admit I follow them. I read their books. And I really get into their space, because if I surround myself with that, then I believe, we become who we're around. And so if you're surrounding yourself with that, that is who you'll become. And it's easier to see it. It's easier to achieve it. It's easier to visualize yourself there, than if you're with people that are, at the same level as you, or even, somewhere you've already accomplished, like, keeping your mindset there. My dad said something that when I was a child, I've always used. He says, you're either moving forward or you're going backwards. There's no such thing as standing still. Standing still is like, it's not there, right? You're either moving forward or you're going backwards, period. So what are you doing? And so, I try to look at how am I moving myself forward, and really using my intuition. I'd probably say my intuition is my number one guide. I was just actually talking to my business coach this morning about that. Like, I don't even do market research on things, which is so against my corporate strategy. If it's good and it feels good and I really have a really good intuition feeling about it, I just do it. And so I think that too, is just one of those things of like, I've really learned to listen to my intuition and who I follow. And if something begins to feel off, then I just get out of that space.
Yeah. You just mentioned that you were talking to your business coach. So you as an entrepreneur, business owner, do you have your own business coach that consults you? So,
yeah.
So is that a necessity or a must or something that entrepreneurs should definitely consider having?
I think that, once again, if you want to push yourself to the next level, you have to invest in yourself. You have to be willing to find that person that you align with really well, and that will take you to that next level. I have, I have a business coach, I have a life coach, and I think that that's just so important, that whatever area of your life you're looking to grow, find someone that you really align with, that you feel really good with, that the energy matches. Whenever I'm hiring a coach, I dig really deep. I don't just go out and hire someone because of their content or their fluff. I really dig deep of how do I feel about this person? Am I aligned? Is our energy exchange good? Do I feel good about them? I'll watch them for probably, no joke, I watched the business coach I have now. I watched her for 6 months before I would invest. And so, it comes back to, once again, just being really cautious about where you put your money. I'm not for entrepreneurs going out and just spending money to spend money. I think actually that's a really bad habit in the
Yeah.
entrepreneur life. I see that happen so much in the online space, and it drives me crazy because I'm like, do they not think about their ROI? Do they not think about like how they invest their money? They just buy stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, just really give that consideration of like, you know, what isn't, you know, is this going to be a good investment? Before you go and purchase something. And I do that like with each of my coaches. I make sure I'm really aligned with them before I move forward and say, okay, you know, I need you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, definitely. And I believe, just like anything, I believe that you need to, like you said, vet out the coach or whoever you're trying to align with. I do believe that as an entrepreneur, you definitely always have to continue to work hard and working yourself. And then, you know, with that comes, you know, having some mentors and coaches. And I have some of those myself too. I always tell people, make sure you're working harder on yourself than you do on anybody else. And with that comes, well, what am I doing to grow? Right.
yeah.
So definitely, I definitely, I can see the connection there too, for sure. So you have a 30-day program, right? Tell me a little bit about the program and what is that consist of, and if people wanted to kind of join that or you know reach out to you for that, they get a better idea.
Absolutely. So it's my 30 days to 10K. It's a self-paced led program. And to be honest, I really just took down how people, I think, you know, once again, people overcomplicate getting to 10K. And so I simplified it into the really breakdown steps of like, okay, you can take these small steps, and it's probably not the steps you think I'm going to tell you. Because once again, we're so used to the cookie cutter approach of like, oh, you have to create a beautiful funnel and you have to, and none of that is in my system. So if that's something people need, they're not going to find it in my system. But it's just a very simplified approach of like how to get out there and get cash flow into your business to where you have that, what I call base, that bread and butter. And then you can scale, then you can go up and scale and create other things. But to create that base within your business is so important, because if you have that cash flow, you can invest in other things, you can scale, you can make it beautiful, you can create funnels if you want to. But it's not how I teach. So I just teach a very simplified approach of getting out of your head and breaking it down. And so a lot of the people that have taken the 30 days to 10K, either A, had never made money before in their business, or B, had really struggled on that roller coaster entrepreneur up and down before they got into the program, and saw, okay, it can be easy. Like, I'm making it really hard. I'm overcomplicating it. And because of that, I'm stalling myself from making money.
Got it. Awesome. So a couple more questions for you before I let you go. If people wanted to connect with you, where can they connect with you?
I encourage them to reach out to me on Facebook. That's my number one platform. I have a business page called Blair Hayse, and then my personal as well.
Got it. And then you've given us quite a few tips. So if you were to give us one more tip in terms of what people can do today, regardless of what they're going through in life, that they can start practicing to overcome anything in their life, what would that be?
I would just say, honestly, just get out there, do whatever is in your heart. And honestly, if you tend to think on it too much, you'll get stalled, and you'll really get caught up in your feelings. And so many times I just tell people, like, if you're feeling something, go do it. You know, if you feel like you want to go to the park and run, go to the park and run. Like, do what makes you feel good. And for every person, that is so different. But just really weigh, like, what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, and then do more of it, period. That's just the bottom line. Business, personal, it doesn't matter.
yeah, definitely. Just do it. Yeah, that's awesome. And then what are some of the things that you do, some habits or daily things that you do to keep you in a positive state of mind?
Meditation and EFT is my number one. That's my go-to. I do it every single morning. You will not find a morning I don't do it. And then I would say probably also just self-care, making sure that I take care of me, because we're running ourselves ragged. We'll never be able to create. So I just always look at anything I create, anything I do, you know, am I coming from a space that I want to create in? If I'm not feeling it, maybe I get up in the morning and I go to my desk and then I just kind of feel that day.
Yeah.
I don't create anything that day because I don't want to create from a space of that's not going to sell, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I want to be happy. I want to be excited. And so just really, I weigh my energy and I do things when my energy is really peaked. And then I slack off. And if my energy is bad, then maybe I just do what I have to do that day to answer emails or to get back with my assistant or clients or whatever. And then I shut down and I just don't even do anything that day. So, for me, it's more of an energy weighing, and I do that daily. Like where's my energy space? Is today the space that I create something? Is today the space that I just need to lay low? Right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that. And it comes down to the intention too, right? What is the intention? And definitely it creates something out of a good intention. Otherwise, a lot of times it may not even come out the way you want it to come out. Exactly. Because your energy, your intention is not where it needs to be. So no, I love that. That's definitely a great advice. And I hope the people that are listening and watching this did get some of those ideas and nuggets that they can actually start utilizing in their own lives and in their own journey as they move forward. Blair, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us before I let you go?
Just if you have a voice, you use it, right? There's nothing I can't stand it when people are like, oh, you're so lucky, you're so successful. And I'm like, lucky? Like, there's nothing about luck out there. Like, just get out there, make it happen. You can be just as successful as any coach or any person you put on a pedestal. You have the ability, just get out there and make it happen for yourself.
Yeah, I heard somebody, I don't know who it was, they said there's no such thing as luck, right? You create your own luck, and you create it based on the actions, you create it based on the attributes, the habits, the things you're doing, and like you said, just go get out and get it done, right? Mm-hmm. And that'll become your luck, if you want to put it that way, or give it a label. Just nothing such thing as that, So no, I love that. Blair, thank you so much for being here and sharing, your ideas and your story with us. So thank you for being on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you like, subscribe, go check out Blair, connect with her on Facebook, go to her website. I'll get all the information down here. Please make sure you share, comment, and like, and stay tuned for the next episodes coming up on You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a good one. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.